Less than a week after the funeral of 17-year-old high school student Austin Metcalf, which was held in Frisco, Texas, it's now clear how his killer, Karmelo Anthony, is going to defend himself in court. This will not be a trial where the outcome hinges on some disputed fact or on a damning piece of forensic evidence or the use of some clever legal theory. Instead, in the eyes of Karmelo Anthony's legal team, the result of this trial will depend on whether they can seat at least one juror who harbors a deep and abiding resentment towards white people. If they can accomplish that during jury selection, then they're guaranteed a mistrial, and Karmelo Anthony can continue driving around in expensive SUVs and living in rented mansions until prosecutors give up. That's their plan as of right now. There's just no longer any way to deny it. We're about to witness another trial in this country where, like the Chauvin trial or the OJ trial, no one is even pretending that the facts actually matter. All that matters is race. In fact, this isn't even really comparable to an O.J. Simpson situation. It's worse than that. In that case, his supporters could hide behind the fact that he was famous or that the police were supposedly corrupt because of what they did to Rodney King or, that sort of thing. The prosecution of Karmelo Anthony, in a very straightforward and undiluted way, will determine whether race trumps the rule of law in this country. It will test whether anti-white race hatred is so profound and so pervasive that a black student can stab an unarmed white teenager in the heart during a track meet, run away, ditch the murder weapon, wonder aloud whether his actions could possibly be considered self-defense, and then get away with it. In other words, generations after the civil rights movement, we're about to see whether white teenagers in places like Frisco, Texas, actually have basic civil rights. And if any of that sounds inaccurate or overstated to you, then you didn't watch the press conference that was held yesterday by the family of Karmelo Anthony. Now, for background, in case you're not familiar with the details of the case, which we've discussed many times, Anthony was arrested on April 2nd after stabbing and killing another student, Austin Metcalf, at a high school track meet. According to the arrest affidavit, witnesses said that Karmelo Anthony, who is black, was inside a tent that was reserved for a different school. Metcalf, who is white, told Karmelo Anthony to leave. Karmelo Anthony dared Metcalf to touch him and, quote, see what happens. Metcalf touched Karmelo Anthony or his backpack, and then Anthony stabbed Metcalf to death. And when the cops showed up, Anthony asked the cops whether he might have a plausible self-defense claim, which is a very good indication that he doesn't. After Anthony was arrested and charged with murder, Metcalf's father, Jeff Metcalf, went on television and announced that he had forgiven Anthony. He pleaded for the public to see Anthony as a child who had made a mistake and to avoid making the killing into a political issue. So with that in mind, here's how a barely literate race hustler named Dominique Alexander, who serves as the president of an activist BLM-type nonprofit called the Next Generation Action Network, here's how he began the press conference yesterday for Karmelo Anthony's family.
Next Generation Action Network from the beginning has respected the loss of life. No matter our opinion of it, we have kept our opinion close. We have not attacked. We have not shared the information that was shared with us about Austin Metcalf because we respect the dignity of life and loss. And all I'm going to say, so it don't be asked later, is that was disrespectful and just shows you all the character who is not invited. He knows that it's inappropriate to be near this family.
This guy is currently apparently the primary representative of Karmelo Anthony and his family. And he doesn't start the press conference by talking about, how Anthony is innocent or how sorry he feels for the family of Austin Metcalf. Instead, Dominique Alexander begins by lecturing Jeff Metcalf, the father of the slain teenager, about how he is disrespectful and how he's supposedly disgracing his son's memory. Yes, Karmelo Anthony's representative personally attacks the father of the boy who Karmelo Anthony killed. I mean, it was one of the most cartoonishly evil and grotesque displays you'll ever see. Watch.
I want to start off this press conference to say something as a deep note that I can tell America What we seen at the beginning of this press conference, the father being at this press conference, these are my words, don't quote anybody, is a disrespect to the dignity of his son.
So he says, what we've seen at the beginning of this press conference of the father being at this press conference is a disrespect to the dignity of his son. Close quote. Well, he can barely speak English, even though he's apparently the spokesman for this family. That's your first problem, getting a spokesman who can't speak. Really, he's doing marketing for the Next Generation Action Network, or whatever it's called. But at the same time, even though this guy's barely able to string a sentence together, the message is very clear. He's saying that the father of Austin Metcalf, whose name he can't even pronounce, and whose son was just brutally murdered by his client, doesn't deserve to be in the same room as the family of Karmelo Anthony. And then he implies he has some sort of dirt on Austin Metcalf, but he doesn't want to say what it is. He just wants to smear the name of the dead child as much as possible. He also clearly wants to torment Jeff Metcalf, a grieving father who has shown Karmelo Anthony and his family infinitely more grace and compassion than they deserve, and certainly much more compassion and grace than they are showing him. And for good measure, he implies that Jeff Metcalf is a racist. And then they had the police come and throw Jeff out of the press conference. And of course, when Jeff Metcalf was told to leave, interestingly enough, he didn't stab anyone, as Karmelo Anthony did in the same situation. Now, this illiterate scumbag knows exactly what he's doing. He understands that Anthony's only real chance of acquittal is to stoke racial conflict in the hopes that he can pollute the jury. That's the only chance he has, because they've got him dead to rights on the facts. He brought a knife where it wasn't supposed to be. He brought a knife to a school event. That's problem number one. Took it out and stabbed someone, even though he couldn't possibly have really feared for his life in that scenario. Tried to ditch the murder weapon, ran away, and then asked the police whether he has a plausible self-defense claim, which that fact alone, by the way, even without all the rest of it, that fact alone should basically sink him, because any self-defense claim is going to hinge, to begin with, at a minimum, on the defendant being able to say that he believed he was in fear for his life, that at least he believed it was self-defense. Well, the defendant can't say that, because he revealed his state of mind to the police shortly after, and he wasn't sure whether it was self-defense or not. And that's really what this entire press conference was about. At no point during his remarks, which lasted around 30 minutes, did Dominique Alexander outline a coherent defense of what Anthony did. Instead, in addition to lashing out at the victim's father, he suggested that the Frisco School District was actually responsible for Austin Metcalf's death because they didn't cancel the track meet during inclement weather. Yes, that's actually what he said. Anthony stabbed and killed somebody because it was raining. And it's the school's fault for not canceling the event because of the rain. They should have known that when it was raining, they got to cancel it, because if they don't, somebody might get stabbed. This is what the school should have known ahead of time. So he demanded to know why the media wasn't holding the school district responsible for holding the track meet during the rain, as if that explains in any way whatsoever why Karmelo Anthony killed Austin Metcalf. Watch.
I'm trying to find how many of y'all have asked the superintendent or one single board of trustee, why didn't you cancel or postpone? With weather in that magnitude, you couldn't have a track meet in rain or thunderstorm or clouds. Y'all are the media. Ask your journalists, your weather journalists, how the weather was that day and that time. Y'all do that research. Because as a person who is the administrator of your children, you are responsible for the safety of the children. And so it seems as if Frisco ISD is trying to push this off.
Yeah, how many of y'all have asked why the school district didn't cancel the track meet? And for that matter, how many of y'all have asked why Austin Metcalf decided to attend the track meet in the first place? If he had never gone, then he wouldn't have gotten killed. And how many of y'all have asked why track meets even exist as a concept? Is it really even a legitimate sport in the first place? After all, if track meets didn't exist, then Austin Metcalf would still be alive today. So why aren't y'all asking about that? Now, to call this line of reasoning low IQ is an insult to every bottom-feeding microbe that exists in the deepest depths of the ocean. This is probably the most flagrant and ineffective attempt to deflect responsibility from Karmelo Anthony that's possible to articulate while keeping a straight face. And it gets worse when you consider the context of what this guy is saying. The reason he's going after the school district is that they've announced that they plan to expel Anthony. And under the circumstances, that's a very reasonable decision. After all, we don't want any more teenagers to be stabbed to death if we can help it. Every school district in the country has very strict rules against bringing deadly weapons to school events, and they also have rules against using the weapon to kill another student. But the Next Generation Action Network is not happy with the school district's plans, and so now they are threatening the school district. Watch.
We've asked that Frisco do not make a decision in this situation, but Frisco ISD has notified of their intent to expel Karmelo Anthony from school 1 month before his high school graduation. That just shows me that Frisco ISD is trying to push off the blame. The Next Generation Action Network, outside of the legal process, will be going through different avenues regarding to ensure that we fight for the rights of Karmelo Anthony. Okay? So in the next coming days, we will be announcing to the public. We will do direct action outside of Frisco ISD administration office because this is outright wrong. You are getting involved in a process that even the legal process has asked us to respect.
Yes, they're planning direct action outside the offices of the school district because Anthony isn't going to be allowed to graduate. And, Austin Metcalf isn't going to graduate either because he's dead. But no, the real tragedy is that Anthony won't be able to graduate. He's not going to be able to walk across, the stage and graduate after stabbing and killing another kid at a school event. What an outrage. That's what this Next Generation activist group is focusing on. Their top priority, just a couple of weeks after their client stabbed somebody to death, is intimidating the local school district over a graduation ceremony. They're not interested in mounting a substantive legal defense or convincing anyone that their client is actually innocent. All they're capable of doing is intimidating everybody in their path, whether it's the victim's father or the school district. Now, putting it mildly, that's a sign that these people are not very bright or effective, and they're also deeply, deeply evil. And later on in the press conference, they made their incompetence even more apparent. Watch as Dominic Alexander invokes somebody named Daniel Penna and then claims that Kyle Rittenhouse shot multiple people in the back with an AK-47, none of which is true or makes any sense whatsoever, but here it is.
Because these racist bigots try to prevent us from standing up for our baby, our boy, he should be afforded the same rights that Kyle Rittenhouse had, Daniel Penna, and all of the people who have claimed whatever their defense was. He should be afforded the same right. Nobody in the public media has one video camera, but we got the video of Kyle Rittenhouse with an AK-47 shooting 3 people in the back. We got that. And he raised more than $2 million publicly, and nobody said anything. So since they tried to come for us, I call for the community's overwhelming support for this fund. The disinformation that was put out was literally deliberate to prevent you from helping this family.
It's pretty incredible to watch. He's ranting about disinformation, and then he states in the same breath that Kyle Rittenhouse shot 3 people in the back with an AK-47. First of all, Kyle Rittenhouse was not carrying an AK-47. He used an AR-15 style weapon, which is not remotely the same thing. Secondly, Kyle Rittenhouse did not shoot 3 people in the back. In fact, there's a very graphic and iconic photo from the trial, which clearly demonstrates that Kyle Rittenhouse shot Gage Grosskreutz in the arm while he was charging at Rittenhouse with a handgun. Rittenhouse also shot another man named Anthony Huber 1 time in the chest. And the first attacker that Rittenhouse shot, a child molester named Joseph Rosenbaum, was initially hit in the groin, then in the hand and the thigh. Then he was shot in the head and ultimately the back. In other words, in no sense did Kyle Rittenhouse shoot 3 men in the back with an AK-47. Literally no part of that sentence is true. And the most important point in the Rittenhouse case is that all of the people he shot were trying to kill or seriously harm him. But the race hustler wants you to believe that, this guy's fake retelling of the case so that, he can draw a fake parallel with Kyle Rittenhouse and Daniel Pena. But Rittenhouse and Daniel Pena raised money because they were clearly innocent. And that's also to say nothing of the fact that all of these race hustlers who are comparing this to Rittenhouse and Penny, all of them said that Rittenhouse and Penny were guilty. So by their own testimony, they are admitting that Karmelo Anthony is guilty. You can page through the comments on the Give, Send, Go account for Karmelo Anthony, and it becomes very clear what all this is really about. Here's just a handful of representative comments that were posted on the Give, Send, Go. All of these comments have several likes, indicating that they're popular in the community. And also importantly, all of these comments are from people who actually donated money. So these are not just random Twitter trolls or random internet trolls. These are people who gave money, in some cases, a good little chunk of money, and then left a comment explaining why they gave money. So I'm going to read a couple of these comments. Quote, "These white people can die mad like they ancestors did. Quote, these crackers need to understand that we are not our ancestors and they will reap what they sow. I hope the knife made a full recovery. Quote, keep doing what you do, young man. You are an anti-bullying hero, a scholar, and a gentleman. Quote, we are the defenders of our lineage." And then here's a few more just for good measure. Quote, "My white people have put so much evil in the earth, you have the right to protect yourself, Karmelo. Quote, I love when we stand up for each other." And then, quote, "Keep your head up, young king." Now, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of comments like this. One of them reads, "Make YT, as in white people, make white people mad." Another reads, "Protect our own," and so on and so on. Now, during this press conference, neither Karmelo Anthony's family nor their representative condemned any of this. They didn't discourage their supporters from posting explicitly anti-white race hatred on their Give, Send, Go. Instead, the mother of Karmelo Anthony claimed that she has not withdrawn any money from the Give, Send, Go as a way of contesting reports from various outlets that they're renting a mansion and driving expensive new cars with the money that they got from the fundraiser. She says that's not true. Watch.
And let me be clear. The claims that were used about the public donation to buy a home or anything else are completely false. We have not received a single dime from the Give, Send, Go fundraiser. And the co-founder has stated that clearly. In the reality, we were just notified yesterday that we could begin to withdraw funds. And it still takes several days to receive those funds once a request is made. Our son deserves the same rights under the law that everyone is afforded to. He's been raised in a 2-parent home with structure, stability, love, and we put God first in everything that we do. We believe in the Constitution, we believe in the laws of this state, but those laws must apply to all of us, not just some of us.
Yes, her son put God first, she says, by stabbing a kid through the heart. That's the takeaway here. We're supposed to feel sorry for these people and pretend to be impressed by their parenting. And then we're supposed to believe whatever she's saying about Give, Send, Go. Now, of course, it's quite possible that she hasn't withdrawn any of the money from the Give, Send, Go. And at the same time, it's possible that this Next Generation Action Network is fronting some money until the check from Give, Send, Go clears. That certainly wouldn't be outside the realm of possibility. After all, this Action Network is clearly fronting some bodyguards and other various amenities for the family. They're uploading footage showing how they're treating Karmelo Anthony, which is like they're treating him like a celebrity. Here's some of it.
All right. Come on, man. Just follow the baby behind us. Just stay close, okay?
Karmelo, do you have anything that you'd like to say, Karmelo? Do you have anything that you'd like to say to the victim, to the family of the victim? Why were you armed, sweetheart? Karmelo, why were you armed at school? Explain your self-defense. How is this self-defense?
Excuse me.
Karmelo, anything you'd like to say?
You want to say to the community that's donated?
Again, it's just incredible to watch the sheer brazenness of this whole display. They're not just treating this murdering thug like a celebrity, they're also flaunting it. They want you to know that having killed a white kid, Anthony is being treated like, Kobe Bryant or something. They want to send the message to other black kids that they'll get the same treatment if they decide to shank a white student at their school. Now, we'll play one final clip from this horror show of a press conference, if only to make it clear how shameless these people are, how little self-awareness they have. Watch as Dominique Alexander attacks Donald Trump and then explains that he's not pulling the race card, even as he pulls the race card and rubs it in everybody's face. Watch.
I'm going to say this again, and this is for everybody. Black people in America, while the current occupant sits at 1600 Pennsylvania, black people in America don't have to pull the race card. It's what we live as a reality every day. It's what we have to teach our children. We don't want to, but we have to.
Maybe now's the time to mention that Dominique Alexander was convicted in 2009 for shaking his girlfriend's 2-year-old child until the child's brain started bleeding. Only spent 8 days in jail for that crime somehow. Maybe now's the time to mention that Dominique Alexander was also indicted in 2019 for assaulting a woman. We could also talk about his legal troubles for allegedly stealing a car, evading arrest, forging a check. Yes, the representative for the Karmelo Anthony family is himself a thug and a career criminal who should have been thrown in prison a long time ago. This is a situation that's so absurd, so on the nose, that it seems like it has to be parody. But it's real. I mean, this is the playbook that the BLM types are running in order to secure an acquittal for a student who just killed a white student for no reason whatsoever. These are the representatives that they're choosing. Thugs are defending thugs. And the more white people suffer and die, the more they'll gloat in public. That's where we are. All these years after the civil rights era and affirmative action and Barack Obama would supposedly usher in a new generation of equality and racial harmony, we're approaching Rwanda circa 1994 at high speed. And whatever happens to Karmelo Anthony, everyone in this country needs to be aware of that. Open racial resentment is how they plan to get Karmelo Anthony off the hook. That's their legal strategy. And the really unsettling thing, which is even more unsettling than this horror show of a press conference, is that it just might work. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.